Rain lashed the city in silver sheets, drumming against the windshield as Elena's taxi pulled up to the grand entrance of the Belladonna Hotel. The doorman's umbrella was a black wing against the storm, and for a moment, Elena hesitated, her hand hovering over the door handle. She'd never been anywhere like this. Crystal chandeliers glimmered through the glass, and the marble lobby glowed with golden light. Her reflection in the window looked small, uncertain, a shadow in borrowed heels and a dress that still had the price tag tucked inside. She stepped out, heart thudding, and the world seemed to hush as she entered. The air inside was perfumed with roses and expensive cologne, a stark contrast to the rain-soaked chaos outside. Elena clutched her invitation, scanning the crowd for a familiar face, but everyone here seemed to belong. Sleek women in designer gowns, men with sharp suits and sharper eyes. She felt invisible, a ghost drifting through a world that wasn't hers. Her phone buzzed, a message from her friend, Mia. "Room 714, hurry, you're missing the fun." Elena's fingers trembled as she typed a reply, her nerves prickling with every step toward the elevator. The mirrored walls reflected her anxiety back at her, amplifying the sense that she was an imposter in a place built for secrets and power. As the elevator doors slid open on the 7th floor, Elena's breath caught. The hallway was hushed, carpeted in crimson, lined with gilded doors. She followed the numbers, her heels sinking into the plush rug, the silence pressing in. A strange chill crept up her spine, a whisper of warning she couldn't quite place. She paused outside room 714, her hand poised to knock, but something made her hesitate. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning her inside. Elena's heart hammered. She told herself it was just nerves, that she was being silly, but every instinct screamed at her to turn back. Still, she pushed the door open, stepping into the unknown. The world behind her faded, replaced by shadows and secrets she couldn't yet see. In that moment, Elena had no idea that one wrong step would change her life forever, or that by morning, she'd be entangled in a world far more dangerous than she could ever imagine. But as the door clicked shut behind her, she knew there was no turning back. Elena's phone vibrated in her hand, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. "Don't trust anyone tonight." The message sent a jolt through her, icy and inexplicable. She stared at it, pulse racing, trying to make sense of the warning. Was it a prank? A mistake? She glanced at the door, 714, just as Mia had said. But the unease in her chest grew heavier, pressing against her ribs. She pushed the door open, expecting laughter, music, the familiar chaos of her friends' parties. Instead, the room was dim, the air thick with cigar smoke and tension. Men in tailored suits sat around a polished table, their faces shadowed, eyes sharp and assessing. At the head of the table sat a man who seemed to command the very air, dark hair, chiseled jaw, and eyes that glinted like obsidian. He looked up, and the conversation died instantly. Elena froze, the invitation slipping from her fingers. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The man at the head of the table, Luca, studied her with a predator's patience, his gaze never wavering. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until one of the men spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "Who are you?" She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. I'm looking for Mia's engagement party. I must have the wrong room, I'm so sorry." A ripple of amusement, cold and humorless, passed through the group. Luca's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're lost, little rabbit." His words were soft, but the threat beneath them was unmistakable. "Or are you spying for someone?" Elena shook her head, panic rising. "No, I swear, my friend said—" She fumbled for her phone, desperate to prove her innocence, but the screen was still lit with that cryptic message. Luca's gaze flicked to it, and something in his expression shifted. Interest, suspicion, a flicker of something darker. He stood, moving with a predator's grace, and the others fell silent. "Show me your phone." His command brooked no argument. Elena handed it over, her hands trembling. He read the message, his eyes narrowing. "Who sent this to you?" "I don't know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've never seen that number before." Luca's men exchanged glances, tension crackling in the air. One of them stepped forward, his hand resting on the inside of his jacket. Elena's heart pounded so loudly she was sure they could hear it. She realized with a sickening twist that she'd stumbled into something far more dangerous than a case of mistaken identity. Luca circled her, his presence overwhelming. "You expect me to believe you just wandered in here by accident?" His voice was soft, almost gentle, but Elena sensed the steel beneath it. "This is a private meeting. People who interrupt us don't usually walk out." Terror clawed at her throat. She forced herself to meet his gaze, refusing to cower. "I'm telling the truth. I don't know anything about your meeting. I just want to find my friend and leave." For a moment, no one moved. Then Luca nodded almost imperceptibly. "Search her." Two men stepped forward, their movements efficient and impersonal. Elena flinched as they checked her purse and pockets, finding nothing but her lipstick, keys, and the crumpled invitation. They handed everything to Luca, who examined the invitation with a frown. He looked back at her, his eyes unreadable. "You're either the unluckiest woman in this hotel or you're a very good liar." He tossed the invitation onto the table. "Either way, you're not leaving until I know which." Elena's knees threatened to buckle, but she stood her ground. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the walls themselves were closing in. She realized, with a cold certainty, that her life now hung in the balance of this man's judgment. Luca gestured to a chair. "Sit. Don't make me ask twice." His voice was velvet over steel, and Elena obeyed, her mind racing. She tried to steady her breathing, to think of a way out, but every exit seemed blocked by men who watched her with wolfish interest. As she sat, Luca leaned in, his voice a whisper meant only for her. "You have one chance to convince me you're not a threat. Choose your words carefully." The warning in his tone was unmistakable. Elena swallowed hard, her mind spinning. She had no idea how to prove her innocence, or what would happen if she failed. All she knew was that she'd walked through the wrong door, and now there was no easy way back. But as Luca's eyes bore into hers, Elena sensed that her fate was no longer her own. The night had shifted, and with it, the course of her life. Elena's hands gripped the edge of the chair, knuckles white, as Luca settled across from her. The room's tension was a living thing, thick and electric, every eye fixed on her. Luca's gaze was the most intense of all, dark, unblinking, as if he could see straight through her skin to the secrets beneath. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low and measured. "Let's start again. Who sent you that message?" Elena shook her head, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "I told you I don't know. I've never seen that number before tonight." One of the men, older and scarred, snorted. "She's lying. No one just walks into a meeting like this." Luca silenced him with a look, then turned back to Elena. "You're not from here. Your accent, where are you from?" "Upstate. I moved here for work. I'm an accountant." A ripple of laughter, sharp and mocking, passed through the men. Luca's lips twitched, but his eyes never left hers. "An accountant at a party in the Belladonna? You must have interesting friends." Elena's chin lifted. "I do, and I'm not a threat to you. I just want to leave." The older man stepped closer, menace in every line of his body. "We can't let her walk out. She's seen too much." Luca's hand rose, halting him. "Let me decide." He studied Elena, his gaze searching for cracks in her composure. She felt the urge to shrink away, but something stubborn inside her refused. She wouldn't beg. Not for her life, not for mercy. Luca's eyes narrowed as if he sensed her defiance. "You're brave, or foolish. Maybe both," she said, voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a flash of white teeth, but there was no warmth in it. "Tell me, Elena, if you were in my position, what would you do with someone like you?" She swallowed, heart pounding. "I'd listen. I'd look for the truth, not just what I wanted to see." A pause. The men exchanged glances, surprised by her answer. Luca's expression softened, just for a heartbeat, before the mask slipped back into place. "You're clever," he said. "But cleverness can be dangerous." The older man's patience snapped. "Enough, she's a liability. Let me handle it." Luca's voice was ice. "Sit down, Marco." Marco hesitated, then obeyed, grumbling under his breath. Luca turned back to Elena, his tone gentler. You're not the first innocent to stumble into something they shouldn't, but you're the first to look me in the eye and not flinch. Elena's fear was real, but so was her resolve. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to go home. He considered her, fingers drumming on the table. If I let you go, what's to stop you from running to the police? I don't even know what I've seen, she said honestly, and I don't want to know. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Most people would be begging by now. I'm not most people. The room was silent, the air charged with something Elena couldn't name. Luca's men watched, restless, waiting for his verdict. He stood, moving around the table until he was beside her. She tensed, but he only leaned down, his voice a murmur. You're in over your head, Elena. But I believe you. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. Luca straightened, addressing his men. She stays here until I say otherwise. No one touches her, Marco bristled. You're making a mistake. Luca's gaze was lethal. If anything happens to her, you answer to me. The message was clear. For a moment, Elena glimpsed something protective in his eyes, a flash of the man beneath the mask. He turned back to her, softer now. You'll stay in this suite until I'm sure you're not a threat. You have my word. No harm will come to you. Elena nodded, her fear mingling with confusion. Why was he protecting her? What did he see in her that made him hesitate? Luca's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. I have business to finish. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but me. He paused at the threshold, looking back. You're safe, for now. The door closed behind him, leaving Elena alone with the wolves. She exhaled shakily, her mind racing. She'd survived the first test, but she knew this was only the beginning. Outside, the storm raged on, and inside, Elena realized she was trapped in a world where trust was a weapon, and every kindness came with a price. But she refused to be a victim. If she was going to survive, she'd have to be as clever and unyielding as the man who now held her fate in his hands. And as the minutes ticked by, Elena's resolve hardened. She would find a way out, or die trying. The silence in the suite pressed in on Elena, thick as velvet. She could hear the low murmur of voices from the next room, the occasional clink of glass, the shuffle of expensive shoes on marble. Every sound made her nerves jump. She paced the length of the room, her mind racing, replaying every word, every glance, every threat. She was trapped but not helpless. Not yet. She replayed the moments before she'd entered the wrong room, searching for anything that might help her. Then she remembered the voices in the hallway, two men arguing in hushed, urgent tones. She'd barely registered their words at the time, but now fragments surfaced. He'll never see it coming. Tonight's the only chance. The wolf will be alone. The memory sent a chill down her spine. The door opened suddenly, and Luca strode in, his presence filling the room. He looked at her, eyes sharp, as if he could sense her thoughts. You're still here. Good. Elena straightened, summoning her courage. I remembered something. Before I came in, I heard two men talking in the hallway. They said something about the wolf being alone tonight. They said you'd never see it coming. Luca's expression changed instantly. Interest, then calculation, then something darker. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. What else did you hear? She shook her head. That's all. I didn't see their faces. I thought it was just party gossip, but now... He studied her, weighing her words. You could have kept that to yourself. Why tell me? Elena met his gaze, refusing to look away. Because I want to live, and because I don't want to be caught in the crossfire of whatever's happening here. A slow smile curved his lips, genuine this time. Smart. Most people in your position would be too scared to think straight. She shrugged, though her heart was pounding. Fear sharpens the mind. Luca's eyes softened, just a fraction. You're not like the others. Before she could reply, Marco appeared in the doorway, his face grim. We have a problem. The security feed shows 2 men on the 7th floor who don't belong. Luca's attention snapped to Marco, then back to Elena. Describe what you heard. Every word. Elena recounted the conversation as best she could, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Luca listened intently, nodding at key details. When she finished, he turned to Marco. Double security. No one in or out without my say-so. Marco hesitated, glancing at Elena. What about her? Luca's answer was immediate. She stays. She's under my protection. Marco's jaw tightened, but he nodded and left, closing the door behind him. Luca turned back to Elena, his demeanor shifting. You've just made yourself very valuable, Elena. But that also means you're in more danger than you realize. She swallowed, her mouth dry. What happens now? He considered her, then gestured to a chair. Sit. We need to talk. She obeyed, perching on the edge of the seat as Luca poured 2 glasses of water, handing one to her. The gesture was oddly intimate, a reminder that beneath the danger, he was still human. I can't let you leave tonight, he said quietly. Whoever those men are, they might think you know more than you do. If you walk out of here, you're a target. Elena's fingers tightened around the glass. So I'm your prisoner, he shook his head. Not a prisoner, a guest. For your own safety, she let out a bitter laugh. That's a matter of perspective. Luca's lips twitched. Perhaps, but I'm offering you a choice. Stay here under my protection until I can guarantee your safety, or take your chances out there, alone. Elena weighed her options. The thought of spending the night in this gilded cage was terrifying, but the alternative, facing unknown enemies in the dark, was worse. She nodded slowly. Fine, I'll stay, but I want your word that I'll be safe. Luca's gaze was steady. You have it. No one will touch you while you're under my roof. A strange sense of relief washed over her, mingled with dread. She was still trapped, but at least she had a protector, one whose motives she couldn't quite read. The hours crawled by. Luca's men came and went, always casting suspicious glances her way. Luca himself was a study in contrasts, one moment cold and commanding, the next almost gentle. He asked her about her life, her work, her family. She answered cautiously, never sure how much to reveal. At one point, he surprised her by bringing her a plate of food. You need to eat, he said, his tone brooking no argument. Elena accepted, her hunger outweighing her pride. Thank you. He sat across from her, watching as she picked at the meal. You're handling this better than most, she managed a wry smile. I'm good at pretending I'm not scared. Luca's eyes softened. You don't have to pretend with me. For a moment, the walls between them thinned. Elena saw the man beneath the mask, the weight he carried, the loneliness in his eyes. But just as quickly, the moment passed, and he was the Mafia boss again, all steel and shadows. As midnight approached, Luca stood. You'll sleep in the guest room. There's a lock on the door. Use it if it makes you feel safer. Elena hesitated. And if I need you? He paused, his expression unreadable. Knock twice on my door. I'll hear you. She nodded, retreating to the guest room. The sheets were cool, the room silent except for the distant rumble of thunder. Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning with questions. Could she trust Luca? Or was she just a pawn in a game she didn't understand? As sleep finally claimed her, Elena knew one thing for certain. The night was far from over, and her uneasy alliance with Luca was only just beginning. And somewhere in the darkness, danger waited, patient and hungry, for its chance to strike. Elena woke to the faintest hint of dawn, the city's storm now a memory, replaced by a heavy, watchful silence. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then the unfamiliar ceiling, the expensive sheets, and the locked door brought it all rushing back. She sat up, heart pounding, listening for any sign of movement. The suite was quiet, but tension lingered in the air, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She dressed quickly, smoothing her wrinkled dress, and crept into the main room. The remnants of last night's meeting were gone. No sign of Luca's men, no trace of the danger that had filled the air. Only Luca remained, standing by the window, silhouetted against the pale morning light. He looked different in daylight, less like a myth, more like a man, though no less dangerous. He turned as she entered, his eyes softening for a moment before the mask slipped back into place. You're up early. Elena shrugged, trying to sound braver than she felt. Hard to sleep when you're not sure you'll wake up. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're safe here. I keep my promises. She studied him, searching for cracks in his armor. Why do you do it? Protect people like me, I mean. You could have let Marco handle me last night. Luca's gaze drifted to the city below. I don't like unnecessary bloodshed, and I don't like bullies. Elena sensed there was more, but he offered nothing else. She crossed the room, drawn by curiosity and something she couldn't name. You're not what I expected. He arched a brow. What did you expect? She hesitated, then smiled. Someone colder, less human, he laughed, a low, rough sound. I'm not as human as you think. The words hung between them, strange and unsettling. Before Elena could ask what he meant, a knock sounded at the door. Luca's entire body tensed, his eyes sharpening. He motioned for her to stay back, then opened the door a crack. A young man, nervous, breathless, whispered something urgent. Luca's jaw clenched. I'll handle it. Wait here. He closed the door, turning to Elena. Stay inside. No matter what you hear, don't open the door. She nodded. But as he left, she caught a glimpse of something odd. His hand, gripping the doorknob, was trembling. The veins beneath his skin dark and pronounced. Left alone, Elena's mind raced. She wandered the suite, drawn to a bookshelf lined with old leather-bound volumes. One book, its spine cracked and faded, caught her eye. Lupi e Leggende. She opened it, scanning the pages. The text was in Italian, but the illustrations were unmistakable. Wolves, moonlit forests, men with eyes like Luca's. Her pulse quickened. Was it just a family legend or something more? A sudden crash from the hallway jolted her. She pressed her ear to the door, straining to hear. Voices, Luca's low and commanding, and another desperate, pleading. Then a growl, deep and inhuman, that made her blood run cold. The argument ended abruptly, footsteps retreating. The suite fell silent once more. When Luca returned, his shirt was torn at the sleeve, a fresh scratch on his forearm. He moved with a restless energy, pacing the room. Elena's eyes widened. Are you hurt? He shook his head, avoiding her gaze. It's nothing. She stepped closer, emboldened by concern. Let me see. He hesitated, then relented, letting her examine the wound. The scratch was already healing, the skin knitting together before her eyes. Elena gasped, stepping back. That's not possible. Luca's expression shuddered. You saw nothing. But Elena's curiosity was stronger than her fear. What are you? He looked at her, something ancient and sorrowful in his eyes. A man, and something more. My family. We're not like others. She remembered the book, the legends. A wolf. He nodded, the admission heavy. It's a curse. Or a gift, depending on the night. Elena's world tilted, but she steadied herself. Does anyone else know? Only those I trust, and those who don't live long enough to tell. The threat was clear, but so was the vulnerability in his voice. Elena reached out, her hand trembling. I won't tell anyone. I swear. Luca searched her face, as if weighing her soul. You're not afraid? She shook her head, though her heart hammered. I should be, but I'm not. He stepped closer, the air between them charged. You're braver than you know. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling. Elena's pulse raced, drawn to him by something primal and undeniable. Luca's hand brushed her cheek, gentle despite the power in his touch. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, the promise of a kiss hanging in the air. But before their lips could meet, a sharp knock shattered the moment. Luca's head snapped up, his body tense. Stay here, he ordered, his voice rough with regret. He strode to the door, every inch the ruthless leader once more. Elena watched him go, her heart aching with longing and fear. She pressed her fingers to her lips, the ghost of his touch lingering. Alone again, Elena realized how much had changed in a single night. She was no longer just a frightened outsider. She was part of a secret, bound to Luca by knowledge and something deeper. The danger was greater than ever, but so was her resolve. She would not run. Not now. As the sun climbed higher, Elena stood at the window, watching the city wake. She felt the weight of secrets and shadows pressing in, but also the spark of courage growing inside her. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on. And somewhere in the suite, Luca watched her, torn between the wolf and the man, knowing that the greatest threat to his world might not be his enemies, but the woman who had seen behind his mask. Night fell with a suffocating heaviness, the city's lights flickering through the rain-streaked windows. Elena sat curled on the edge of the guest bed, her nerves raw, replaying every moment since she'd stepped into this world of secrets. She could still feel the echo of Luca's almost kiss, the warmth of his hand on her cheek, the way his eyes had softened for her alone. But now, the suite felt colder, shadows stretching long and thin across the walls. She heard voices in the hallway, low, urgent, and unfamiliar. Curiosity prickled at her, but she remembered Luca's warning, stay inside no matter what. Still, something in the tone, a note of fear, of anger, drew her to the door. She pressed her ear against the wood, straining to make out the words. She knows too much. We can't trust her. You said you'd handle it, Marco. Elena's breath caught. Marco. The man who'd wanted her gone from the start. A second voice, quieter but unmistakable, replied, Luca's blinded by her. He's making mistakes. If we don't act, we all pay the price. A third voice, one she didn't recognize, hissed, Tonight, then. When he leaves for the meeting, no witnesses. Elena's blood ran cold. She stumbled back from the door, heart hammering. They were planning something against Luca, against her. She had to warn him. But as she reached for her phone, she realized it was gone. She'd left it in the main room, where Luca had taken it for safekeeping. Panic clawed at her. She was trapped, unarmed, and alone. Footsteps approached. Elena darted into the bathroom, pressing herself against the cold tile, barely daring to breathe. The suite door creaked open. She heard Marco's voice, low and conspiratorial. Check the rooms. She can't have gone far. Another man replied, If she screams, it's over for all of us. Elena's mind raced. She could try to escape, slip out the window, run for help. But the 7th floor was a long way down, and the storm outside was unforgiving. Or she could risk everything and try to reach Luca, warn him before it was too late. A floorboard creaked outside the bathroom. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. She scanned the room for anything she could use. A towel rack, a heavy perfume bottle, anything to defend herself. The doorknob rattled. Open up, Marco growled. We know you're in there. Elena's fear threatened to swallow her, but she forced herself to think. Luca had trusted her with his secret. He'd protected her when no one else would. If she ran now, she'd be alone, and Luca would be walking into a trap. But if she stayed, if she tried to warn him, she might not survive the night. The door burst open. Marco and another man filled the doorway, their faces twisted with suspicion and something darker. Come on, Marco sneered, grabbing her arm. You're coming with us. Elena twisted away, her voice steady despite the terror. Luca will kill you for this. Marco laughed, cold and cruel. He won't get the chance. They dragged her into the main room, where the third man waited, gun in hand. Elena's mind raced. She had to stall, to buy time. You're making a mistake, she said, locking eyes with Marco. Luca trusts me. If I disappear, he'll know it was you. Marco's grip tightened. He's too busy playing hero to see what's right in front of him. You're just a distraction. The man with the gun stepped forward. Enough. We do this now before he comes back. Elena's heart pounded. She searched the room for anything that could help. Her gaze landed on the heavy glass decanter on the bar. As the man with the gun turned to check the hallway, she lunged, grabbing the decanter and swinging it with all her strength. It shattered against his head, sending him sprawling. Marco cursed, lunging for her, but Elena was already moving, adrenaline fueling her. She darted for the door, but Marco caught her by the hair, yanking her back. You little... Before he could finish, the suite door slammed open. Luca stood in the doorway, eyes blazing, every inch the wolf she now knew him to be. Let her go, he growled, voice low and dangerous. Marco hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. Luca, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Luca snarled, stepping forward. You betrayed me. The room exploded into chaos. The man with the gun staggered to his feet, aiming at Luca. Elena screamed, diving for cover as Luca moved with inhuman speed, disarming the man and sending him crashing into the wall. Marco tried to run, but Luca caught him, pinning him with a strength that was more beast than man. Elena watched, breathless, as Luca's eyes flashed gold, his teeth bared in a snarl. For a moment, she saw the wolf beneath the skin, terrifying, unstoppable. But then he looked at her, and the rage faded, replaced by something softer. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice rough. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I'm okay. I tried to warn you." He crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. "You did more than that. You saved me." Behind them, Marco whimpered, begging for mercy. Luca's men burst in, weapons drawn, but Luca waved them off. "Take them away. I'll deal with them later." As the room emptied, Luca held Elena close, his body trembling with adrenaline and relief. "You could have run," he whispered. "Why didn't you?" She looked up at him, her voice steady. "Because I trust you, and because I'm tired of being afraid." Luca cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. "You're braver than anyone I've ever known." Elena managed a shaky smile. "I'm just trying to survive." He laughed softly, the sound warm and real. "You're doing more than that." The danger wasn't over, but something fundamental had shifted. Suspicion had given way to fragile loyalty, and in the aftermath of betrayal, Elena and Luca stood together, no longer captor and captive, but allies bound by trust and the promise of something more. But as the night deepened, Elena knew the real test was still to come. For in Luca's world, trust was a rare and dangerous thing, and every choice could be the difference between life and death. The city faded behind them as Luca drove, his hands tight on the wheel, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. Elena sat beside him, wrapped in a borrowed coat, her nerves still raw from the night's chaos. The car's engine hummed steadily, a fragile cocoon of safety as rain pattered against the windows. Neither spoke for a long while, the silence between them heavy with everything unspoken. Finally, the city lights gave way to winding roads and dense shadowed woods. Luca turned down a gravel drive, headlights sweeping over a small, secluded cabin nestled among the trees. He killed the engine and turned to Elena, his expression softer in the dim light. "We'll be safe here. No one knows about this place but me." Elena nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." He led her inside, flipping on a lamp that cast a warm, golden glow over the rustic space. The safe house was simple but inviting. Stone fireplace, worn leather sofa, shelves lined with old books and faded photographs. For the first time since the nightmare began, Elena felt her shoulders relax. Luca disappeared into the kitchen, returning with 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to her, their fingers brushing. The touch lingered, sending a shiver up her spine. They sat together on the sofa, the fire crackling softly, the world outside reduced to rain and darkness. For a while they said nothing, content to share the quiet. Then Luca spoke, his voice low and hesitant. "I haven't brought anyone here in years. Not since—" He trailed off, staring into the flames. Elena watched him, sensing the weight he carried. "Not since what?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Not since my brother died. This was our place. When we were kids, we'd come here to escape everything. The family, the expectations, the danger. For a few hours, we could pretend we were normal." She reached out, her hand covering his. "What happened to him?" Luca's jaw tightened. "He was killed. Caught in the crossfire of a war he never wanted. I was supposed to protect him, but I failed." The pain in his voice was raw, unguarded. Elena squeezed his hand, her own heart aching. "You were just a boy." He shook his head. "I was old enough to know better. Old enough to fight back, but I was too afraid." The confession hung between them, fragile and real. Elena saw for the first time the cracks in Luca's armor, the grief, the guilt, the loneliness that haunted him. She shifted closer, her voice gentle. "You're not that boy anymore. You protect people now, even me." He looked at her, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "You're different. Most people run from me. You stay." Elena smiled softly. "Maybe I'm just stubborn." He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. "Or maybe you see something worth staying for." The firelight danced across their faces, casting shadows that felt almost protective. For a moment, the world outside, the betrayals, the violence, the ever-present threat, seemed far away. Here, in this quiet sanctuary, they were just two people, bound by loss and longing. Luca set his mug aside, turning to face her fully. "I don't let people in, Elena. It's too dangerous. But with you, I want to try." Her breath caught, hope and fear warring inside her. "I want that too." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The gesture was tender, almost reverent. "You make me feel like I could be more than what I am." She leaned into his touch, her heart pounding. "You already are." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the silence filled with possibility. Then, as if afraid to break the spell, Luca pulled back, his voice barely audible. "We should rest. Tomorrow will be dangerous." Elena nodded, understanding the unspoken promise in his words. She rose, moving to the small bedroom, but paused in the doorway. "Luca," he looked up, eyes shadowed but warm. "Thank you for trusting me." He smiled, a real unguarded smile. "Thank you for giving me a reason to." As Elena slipped beneath the covers, she listened to the rain and the steady beat of her own heart. For the first time in days, she felt safe. Not because of the walls around her, but because of the man who'd let her see the truth behind his mask. Yet even as sleep claimed her, she knew the sanctuary was only temporary. Outside, danger still hunted them. But inside, in the fragile peace they'd found together, hope flickered, small, stubborn, and impossibly bright. The morning brought no peace. Elena woke to the sound of Luca's voice, low and urgent, speaking into his phone by the window. His silhouette was tense, shoulders hunched, every line of his body radiating worry. She sat up, heart sinking as she caught fragments of his conversation. Words like breach, surrounded, and no time. The safe house, their fragile haven, was no longer safe. Luca ended the call and turned to her, his face grave. "They found us. We have maybe an hour before they close in." Elena's blood ran cold. "How?" He shook his head. "Someone must have followed us. Or there's a traitor still in my ranks." She rose, pulling on her shoes with shaking hands. "What do we do?" Luca crossed the room, cupping her face in his hands. "I'll get you out. There's a back way through the woods. I'll hold them off." Elena's heart twisted. "I'm not leaving you." He smiled, bittersweet. "You have to. If they catch you, they'll use you against me. I can't let that happen." A knock at the door made them both jump. Luca motioned for silence, moving to the peephole. He relaxed slightly. "It's Marco, he's alone." Elena's stomach clenched. After last night's betrayal, she didn't trust Marco, but Luca opened the door anyway. Marco entered, eyes darting nervously. "They're coming, boss. Too many to fight. You need to run." Luca's jaw tightened. "I'm not running. Not this time." Marco looked at Elena, guilt flickering in his eyes. "They want her. They think she's the key to breaking you." Elena's breath caught. "What does that mean?" Marco hesitated, then blurted, "They're offering a deal. If you give her up, they'll let you walk away. No blood, no war." Luca's face hardened. "That's not a deal." "That's blackmail." Marco's voice trembled. "If you stay, you both die. If you go, maybe you live." The room spun around Elena. She saw the calculation in Marco's eyes, the desperation in Luca's. She realized with a sick certainty that her presence was a weapon, one that could destroy Luca or save him, depending on what she chose. Luca turned to her, his voice breaking. "I won't let them take you. I'd rather die." Elena shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "No, I won't let you throw your life away for me." He gripped her shoulders, fierce and desperate. "You don't understand. You're not just a pawn to them. You're everything to me." The words hung between them, raw and real. Elena's heart ached with love and fear. She knew what she had to do, even if it meant losing him. She stepped away, facing Marco. "Take me to them." Luca's eyes widened in horror. "No, Elena, don't." She forced herself to meet his gaze, her voice steady. "If I go willingly, maybe they'll let you live. Maybe you can end this war." Luca shook his head, anguish twisting his features. "They'll kill you." Elena smiled through her tears. "Maybe. But I'd rather die for you than live knowing I let you die for me." Marco hesitated, torn. "You don't have to do this," Elena nodded. "Yes, I do. Tell them I'll come. But only if they let Luca go." Luca tried to stop her, but she pressed a trembling hand to his lips. "Trust me. Please." Marco led her outside, the woods thick and silent, the air heavy with the promise of violence. Elena's heart pounded as they approached the clearing where the rival Mafia waited. Men in dark coats, guns glinting in the morning light. Their leader, a cold-eyed man named Rinaldi, stepped forward. "So this is the girl," Rinaldi sneered, "the one who tamed the wolf." Elena stood tall, refusing to show fear. "I'm here. Let Luca go and I'll do whatever you want." Rinaldi laughed, cruel and sharp. "You're brave. I like that, but I don't make deals with traitors." He nodded to his men. Two of them grabbed Elena, twisting her arms behind her back. She bit back a cry, glaring at Rinaldi. "You promised." He shrugged. "I lied." Suddenly, chaos erupted. Luca burst from the trees, a force of nature, eyes blazing gold. He moved with impossible speed, taking down two men before they could react. Gunfire split the air. Elena struggled against her captors, screaming Luca's name. Rinaldi aimed his gun at Luca, a cold smile on his lips. "Say goodbye, Wolf." Elena acted without thinking. She wrenched free, throwing herself between Luca and the gun. The shot rang out, pain exploding in her side. She crumpled to the ground, the world spinning. Luca roared, the sound inhuman, shaking the trees. He tore through Rinaldi's men, unstoppable, his rage terrifying and beautiful. When the last of them fled, he dropped to his knees beside Elena, gathering her in his arms. "Elena, stay with me, please." She smiled weakly, blood staining her lips. "I told you. I'd rather die for you." Luca's tears fell, hot and desperate. "Don't say that. I need you. I can't lose you." She reached up, brushing his cheek. "You won't, I promise." Her vision blurred, darkness closing in. She heard Luca's voice, fierce and broken, swearing an oath in a language she didn't understand, a blood oath, binding and eternal. As Elena slipped into unconsciousness, her fate uncertain, she clung to the memory of his touch, the sound of his voice, and the hope that love could survive even this. The sanctuary was gone, replaced by chaos and sacrifice. But in risking everything, Elena had proven her courage, and set in motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness, pain pulsing through her side like a living thing. The world was a blur of sound and shadow, shouts, gunfire, the crackle of branches underfoot. Somewhere above her, the sky was a cold, indifferent gray, rain beginning to fall in icy sheets. She tried to move, but her body felt heavy, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Through the haze, she heard Luca's voice, raw, desperate, calling her name. She forced her eyes open, blinking against the rain. Luca knelt beside her, his face streaked with blood and tears, his hands pressed to her wound. "Stay with me, Elena, please, just hold on." She tried to speak, but only a whisper escaped. "Luca, I'm sorry." He shook his head fiercely. "No, don't you dare apologize. You saved me. You saved all of us." His voice broke, and for a moment, Elena saw the boy he'd once been, lost, afraid, clinging to hope in a world that had never been kind. Around them, chaos reigned. Rinaldi's men regrouped at the edge of the clearing, guns raised, eyes wide with fear and hatred. Rinaldi himself stood at the front, his face twisted in a snarl. "Enough of this! Kill them both!" Luca's body tensed, his eyes flashing gold. He looked down at Elena, his voice trembling. "I have to stop them. I have to protect you." She reached for his hand, her grip weak but determined. "Don't leave me." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, his lips lingering. "Never, I promise." Then, with a shudder that seemed to ripple through his entire being, Luca rose. The change came over him like a storm, bones shifting, muscles swelling, his features sharpening into something both beautiful and terrifying. His suit tore at the seams, claws sprouting from his fingers, fur rippling across his skin. The men in the clearing gasped, some stumbling back in terror. Rinaldi's voice shook. "He's a monster!" "Shoot him! Shoot!" Gunfire erupted, bullets slicing through the rain. Luca moved with impossible speed, weaving between the trees, a blur of shadow and fury. He tore through the first wave of attackers, his claws flashing, his growl echoing through the woods. Men screamed, dropping their weapons, fleeing into the darkness. Elena watched, awe and fear warring inside her. She'd known Luca was dangerous, but nothing had prepared her for this raw, unstoppable power. Yet even as he fought, she saw the man beneath the beast, the way he shielded her from stray bullets, the way he spared those who dropped their guns and ran. Rinaldi, undeterred, advanced on Elena, gun raised. "You think you can hide behind your monster? You're just a girl. He can't save you." Elena's vision swam, but she forced herself to sit up, clutching her side. "You're wrong," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "He's not a monster. He's the bravest man I've ever known," Rinaldi sneered, stepping closer. "He's a freak, and you're nothing." A snarl split the air. Luca lunged from the shadows, tackling Rinaldi to the ground. The two men struggled, Rinaldi's gun going off with a deafening crack. Luca roared, pinning Rinaldi with one massive paw, his fangs bared inches from the man's throat. "Do it!" Rinaldi spat, defiant even in defeat. "Show her what you really are!" For a moment, Luca hesitated, his body trembling with rage and restraint. Elena saw the battle in his eyes, the urge to kill, the fear of losing himself, the desperate need to protect her. She crawled closer, her hand reaching for him. "Luca," she whispered, her voice a lifeline. "You're not a monster. You're the man I love." The words hung in the air, cutting through the chaos. Luca's eyes met hers, gold fading to deep, stormy brown. He released Rinaldi, shoving him aside. "Get out," he growled. "If I ever see you again, you die." Rinaldi scrambled to his feet, clutching his throat, and fled into the woods. The remaining men followed, their fear palpable. In moments, the clearing was empty, save for Luca and Elena. Luca shifted back, his body shrinking, fur receding, until he was himself again. Bloody, battered, but unmistakably human. He staggered to Elena's side, gathering her into his arms. I'm here. She clung to him, tears mingling with the rain. "You saved me." He shook his head, voice thick with emotion. "No, you saved me. You made me remember who I am." She smiled weakly, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "I love you, Luca, all of you, even the parts you're afraid of." He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath warm against her skin. "I love you too, Elena, more than I ever thought possible." For a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them. No guns, no enemies, no fear. Just love, fierce and fragile, holding them together in the storm. But the danger wasn't over. Sirens wailed in the distance, the promise of more violence to come. Luca looked down at Elena, his eyes full of fear and hope. "We have to go. Can you walk?" She nodded, though every movement sent pain lancing through her body. He helped her to her feet, supporting her with an arm around her waist. Together, they stumbled through the woods, the rain washing away the blood, the fear, the past. As they reached the edge of the trees, headlights cut through the darkness. For a moment, Elena tensed, expecting another attack. But the car that pulled up was familiar. Marco, battered but alive, waving them over. "Hurry," he called. "We don't have much time." Luca helped Elena into the back seat, climbing in beside her. Marco sped off, the tires spinning on the wet gravel. In the rearview mirror, Elena saw the safe house burning, flames licking at the sky, a funeral pyre for the life they'd left behind. She leaned against Luca, exhaustion pulling at her. "What happens now?" He brushed a damp strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle. "Now we survive. Together." She closed her eyes, letting the rhythm of the road and the warmth of his embrace lull her toward sleep. But even as her body relaxed, her mind raced with questions about the future, about the world they'd have to face, about the love that had saved them both. In the darkness, Luca pressed a kiss to her temple, whispering words she barely heard. "I'll never let you go, not now, not ever." Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the car, Elena felt a fragile peace, a sense that, for the first time, she wasn't running alone. Yet as the city lights reappeared on the horizon, she knew their fight was far from over. Love had given them strength, but loyalty and danger still circled, hungry and relentless. The world would never let them rest for long, but for now, in the aftermath of violence and revelation, Elena and Luca clung to each other, human and wolf, fragile and fierce, bound by blood, by sacrifice, and by a love that refused to die. The city was waking as Marco's car sped through the empty streets, the storm finally spent. Elena leaned against Luca, her head on his shoulder, the pain in her side dulled by exhaustion and the warmth of his arms. The adrenaline that had carried her through the night was gone, leaving only a bone-deep weariness and a heart full of questions. They reached a quiet townhouse on the city's edge, hidden behind iron gates and tall hedges. Marco parked, glancing back at them with a look of relief and regret. "You're safe here. For now." Luca nodded, his gratitude silent but clear. He helped Elena inside, guiding her to a small guest room. The sheets were cool and clean, the air scented with lavender. For the first time in what felt like forever, Elena let herself relax, sinking into the bed as Luca sat beside her. A doctor arrived, summoned by Luca's call. He worked quickly, cleaning and stitching Elena's wound, his hands gentle but efficient. "You're lucky," he murmured. "Another inch and it would have been much worse." Elena managed a weak smile. "Luck seems to be all I have left." Luca squeezed her hand, his eyes never leaving her face. "You have more than luck. You have me." When the doctor left, Luca stayed, holding her hand in the quiet. The chaos of the night felt distant now, replaced by a fragile peace. Elena studied his face, memorizing every line, every shadow. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of everything he'd done to keep her safe. "Why did you risk everything for me?" she asked softly. He hesitated, searching for words. "Because you're the only person who's ever seen me, all of me, and stayed. Because you make me want to be better. Because I love you, Elena. I think I always have." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I love you too, but I don't know if I can live in your world. It's so dark, so dangerous. I'm not sure I'm strong enough." Luca's grip tightened. "You're stronger than you think. But I won't ask you to stay. You deserve a life that's safe, a life that's yours." The words hung between them, heavy with longing and fear. Elena turned away, staring at the ceiling. She thought of her old life, her quiet apartment, her safe routines, the dreams she'd once had. It all seemed so far away now, faded and small compared to the storm she'd survived. Marco knocked softly at the door, his voice hesitant. "There's a car waiting. If you want to go, it'll take you anywhere you want. No questions asked." Elena's heart twisted. Freedom was within reach, an escape from the violence, the secrets, the constant fear. But as she looked at Luca, she realized that freedom came with its own kind of pain. She sat up, wincing at the pull in her side. "What happens if I stay?" Luca's eyes searched hers, hope and dread mingling. "If you stay, you'll never be safe. My enemies will always be looking for a weakness. You'll always be a target, but you won't be alone. I'll protect you for as long as I live." Elena's mind raced. She thought of the night in the safe house, the warmth of Luca's arms, the way he'd looked at her as if she was the only thing that mattered. She thought of the fear, the pain, the blood. She thought of the love that had grown between them, fierce and wild, and impossible to ignore. "I don't want to lose myself," she whispered. "I don't want to become someone I don't recognize." Luca cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. "You won't. I'll never ask you to change. I just want you to be happy, even if that means letting you go." The honesty in his voice broke something open inside her. She realized with a jolt that she was no longer the woman who'd walked into the wrong room. She was stronger now, braver, forged by fire and loss and love. She stood, swaying slightly, and Luca caught her, steadying her with gentle hands. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "Rest, heal, when you're ready I'll be here." Elena nodded, her heart torn in two. She lay back down, closing her eyes, letting the quiet wash over her. But sleep wouldn't come. Her mind replayed every moment. Luca's confession, the look in his eyes, the promise of a life together, dangerous but real. Morning crept in, pale and uncertain. Elena rose, moving to the window. The city stretched out before her, full of possibility and peril. She pressed her hand to the glass, feeling the weight of her choice. Behind her, Luca waited, silent and patient. He would let her go if she asked. He would fight for her if she stayed. The decision was hers alone. As the sun rose higher, Elena turned from the window, her heart pounding. She walked to the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. She looked back at Luca, her voice trembling but sure. "I need time, but I'm not running." "Not yet," he smiled, relief and hope shining in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait. For you, I'd wait forever." Elena stepped into the hallway, the future uncertain but hers to claim. She didn't know what choice she would make, only that it would be hers, and that whatever happened, she would never be the same. Outside, the city beckoned, full of danger and promise. Inside, Luca watched her go, his heart tangled with hope and fear. And somewhere between the two, Elena's story was just beginning. Days passed in a blur of recovery and restless dreams. Elena wandered the townhouse's quiet halls, her body healing, but her mind caught between worlds. She watched the city from the window, the skyline sharp against the autumn sky, and wondered if she could ever return to the life she'd known. Each night she replayed the moments in the woods, the gunshot, Luca's transformation, the way he'd held her as if she was the only thing anchoring him to his humanity. One morning, as pale sunlight spilled across the sheets, Elena woke with a strange ache in her side. She sat up, pushing aside the covers, and caught sight of something new on her skin. Just above her hip, where the bullet had grazed her, a mark had appeared, delicate, silvery, almost like a scar, but shaped unmistakably like a crescent moon entwined with a wolf's paw. She traced it with trembling fingers, a shiver running through her. It pulsed faintly, as if alive, as if it belonged to something ancient and wild. A knock at the door startled her. Luca entered, his eyes soft with concern. "How are you feeling?" She hesitated, then lifted her shirt just enough to show him the mark. "This wasn't here before." Luca's breath caught. He knelt beside her, his fingers gentle as he examined the mark. "It's the sign of the blood oath. When you saved me, when you risked your life, you became part of my world, Elena. This mark means you're bound to me, to the pack." Elena's heart pounded. "What does it mean? Am I like you?" He shook his head, a bittersweet smile on his lips. "Not a wolf. But you're protected. No one can harm you without facing the wrath of the pack. You're one of us now, whether you choose to stay or go." She let the shirt fall, her mind spinning. The mark was a promise and a warning, a reminder that she could never truly go back. She was changed, claimed by a world of shadows and secrets, her innocence traded for something fiercer, more dangerous. Later, as dusk fell, Elena wandered into the garden, the air cool and fragrant with late roses. She sat on a stone bench, tracing the mark through her shirt, thinking of all she'd lost and all she'd gained. Safety was gone, but in its place was a strange new power, a sense of belonging, of purpose, of love that defied reason. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Luca watching from the doorway. He didn't speak, just offered a small, hopeful smile. She smiled back, her heart aching with everything she couldn't say. The choice still hung between them, freedom or love, safety or danger, the past or the future. But as she sat in the twilight, Elena felt something shift inside her. She was no longer the woman who'd stumbled into the wrong room. She was stronger now, marked by survival, by sacrifice, by the love of a man who was both wolf and protector. Unseen by either of them, a shadow moved at the edge of the garden. A figure watched from beneath the trees, eyes glinting with cold intent. He lifted a phone, speaking in a voice as smooth as silk. "She bears the mark. The prophecy is in motion. Tell the others. She's more important than we thought." The call ended, and the figure melted into the darkness, leaving only the faintest trace of menace in the air. Elena shivered, sensing the change, the way the world seemed to hold its breath around her. Inside, Luca waited, torn between hope and fear. He knew the mark would draw attention, friends and enemies alike. He knew the peace they'd found was fragile, a brief calm before the next storm. But he also knew that together, they were stronger than either had ever been alone. As night deepened, Elena stood and walked back inside, her decision still unspoken but growing clearer with every step. She paused at the threshold, looking back at the moonlit garden, the shadows shifting among the roses. She pressed her hand to the mark, feeling its pulse, its promise. She was bound to Luca now, to his world, to the dangers and the love that came with it. She didn't know what the future held, only that she would face it on her own terms. And as the story closed on this chapter, a question lingered in the air, unanswered and electric. Should Elena run or embrace her new fate? Would you choose the safety of the past or the wild, dangerous love of the wolf? Comment below, what would you do? For Elena, the journey was just beginning, and somewhere in the darkness, new threats were already gathering, drawn by the mark of the wolf and the promise of a love that refused to die.